There's only one fella knew him better than in Blackpool than me, and that was Ronnie Trowfall.
He died last year, you know.
I know he did. I went to his funeral.
Ah, right, yes, because I spoke to his wife, Josie.
Josie's lovely. I also went to...
Davy Dunford's.
No, Dave... Jack Threlfall, his brother, died a year later. I organised his funeral.
Right.
I organised his funeral last year.
Right, well...
nobody knew Sykesy better than me, apart from Ronnie Trelly.
Yeah, well, what I'll do, if we have a chat now for 5 minutes, and then obviously, when you're next down, you give me a ring, and I'd like to come and give you some books as a thank you.
Yeah, sounds alright.
Right, so Tony, so when was the first time you ever seen and met Paul Sykes?
Okay, no. It was probably about 1979, 1980. Around that time when he was out of Nick, because you obviously know a lot about him. He was institutionalised Paul, and he spent all his time in fucking prison. I was at the fight when he fought Gardner, John L. Gardner at Blackpool Tower. I was a very good friend of the man who stopped him winning the fucking fight, McGill.
Yeah.
I went over to Wakefield with him on a couple of occasions to collect some money, because he used to be a rent collector or a debt collector, you know.
Yeah.
I went into the carpet shop. Some fella owed $2,000, so we went in his carpet shop and we drove over I think he had a Ford Anglia at the time, or a Zephyr, and we went over to the carpet shop. We had to get this $2,000. He terrorised this fella, and this fella gave him 300 quid, and he took about 20 Persian carpets and threw them in back at car.
Right.
With them. Paul was a monster. He was one of the funniest men I ever met. He's one of the most intelligent men I ever met. He's one of the nastiest bastards I've ever met. And he was one of the most. When it came to his missus, he was like a fucking kid, you know. He was like an amazing fucking husband and father. But in the middle of all this, he was a fucking monster.
Yeah. Do you obviously you knew him very well, Tony? Do you think he had any kind of mental health issues?
Paul's problem was he had a fucking working class background. I think he was definitely autistic. No fucking danger. And what Paul's problem was, he overeducated himself for his fucking social background, because he's read so much in prison and became an intellect. By the way, he was a fucking intellect. He was a clever man, and because he became an intellectual, he outgrew and outlived his social circle. So the only respect he got in Wakefield was when he twice done with it. And he loved to meet somebody with a brain. That's why I got on so well with him, because I'm moderately intelligent.
Yeah.
And he would talk for fucking ever and ever about any subject you wanted. But a lot of what he said was fantasy. I promise you that. A lot of what he said was fantasy. There's no way you have fucking breakfast in Moscow and tea in Wakefield in 1975. It was physically impossible, you know. There's no way a lot of what he said happened.
Yeah.
When he used to take a lot of speed as well. And when he got on the speed, you couldn't shut him up.
Right. And obviously, was his name really big in Blackpool then? Was he active?
Blackpool was run by Mitzi Walsh. Mitzi was the godfather in Blackpool. He was the Cray twins of Blackpool.
Yeah.
And when Paul came over, to be fair to Paul, he used to run with Ronnie Trelly. I mean, he fucking killed a police dog once. Police dog went for him, and he just splayed its legs, you know. German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Jumped up at him, and he just grabbed its legs and split it, killed it stone dead in 1 second.
Paul Sykes did?
Yeah.
Right. And did Paul have had any issues with this Mitzi Walsh?
Oh, yeah. Mitzi had a gun in his mouth.
Right.
It's a long story. I'll tell you that one at another time, but it's a longer story, that.
Right, okay. And if you could sum Paul Sykes...
By the way, Paul Sykes was fearless. Nobody frightened Paul Sykes. Nobody. Nobody on the planet frightened him. But what I liked about Paul Sykes was his intellect was amazing. He was very, very intelligent. He was very funny. But he had that horrible fucking streak where he had to prove himself in prison. And you know the world in prison is different from the world out. He couldn't handle out. He couldn't fucking handle it.
Yeah.
He was like a kid in a toy shop when he got out of prison.
Yeah, so he was institutionalised, wasn't he?
Oh, more than. He's about 30 odd years in prison of his whole life on it.
I think
at a young age.
Yeah, I worked out, I calculated that he'd done something like 24 and a half out of his 60 years in prison. So that's...
He fought John L. Gardner for the heavyweight championship of Great Britain or England at the Tower. And the reason he got beat is because his legs went. Now, you know and I know, nobody had fucking fitter or stronger legs than Paul Sykes. He was stopped by the British Board of Control, Boxing Control, who didn't want him to win the fight because of what he represented.
Yeah, and he was given pure oxygen before the fight, wasn't he?
He was given a fucking injection after round 3.
Right. Because that was when the fight started going away from him after round 3.
Have you seen the fight?
Yes, I've watched it with John L. Gardner himself, and
watch what goes on in the corner.
Right, okay, I'll do that. And obviously, I'm
in the corner. His corner man was Dr Mcgill.
Yeah, Patrick McGill.
He was his corner man.
Right.
He was a great character, by the way. He was a fantastic human being. If you wanted a script, you went to Dr Mcgill. You know?
Right.
He'd been struck off and all that.
Yeah, I've read a lot. He was in prison himself. But I'm going to come and see you, Tony, soon. Obviously, next time you're in mind.
There's a rumour McGill murdered his wife and buried her on the beach.
Yeah, I've read that.
The body came up when the tide came in, which it would, you know.
Jesus.
So he was very Irish, very clever man, but thick as pig shit.
Yeah, he was a boxer as well, wasn't he?
He was a great fella. He just had he kissed the Blarney Stone. He had the Irish way, you know. He was a lovely human being, lovely man.
And if you could sum Paul Sykes up in a few words, how would you describe him?
There's only one word for Paul Sykes. Psychopathic genius. There's no one word for Paul Sykes. There isn't one word for him. There was too many facets to Paul Sykes for there to be one word. He was 4 different people. He was the criminal and thug. He was the family man who was the most caring, soft. He was the animal who shagged all the little boys in prison. He was the monster on the streets because he hated the law. And he could have been a lawyer. He could have been a barrister. Could have been a lawyer. You know, and he was fucking intelligent. He was really intelligent. And do you know what else he could have been?
Go on.
He could have been a professional comedian.
Yeah, John Spencer told me that.
He was hysterically funny, but he had that intellect. But the intellect was pushed with the he took a lot of speed, you know. He loved speed.
Yeah. Can I just ask one thing, Tony? Obviously, I'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks. Was you just mentioned there about obviously the boys in prison? You were close to Paul. What's your opinion? Did that happen or did it not?
He would never talk about that. He wouldn't admit that. You know. Let's put it this way. He had a massive sexual appetite.
Yeah.
And there weren't any women in prison. Work it out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's